You know that incredibly frustrating feeling when you wash your hair in the morning and you step out of the shower feeling just completely refreshed?
Oh, the best feeling.
Right. Your scalp is perfectly clean, and then, I don't know, by like 4 in the afternoon, you catch your reflection, and your roots look like you've been deep frying something.
Yeah, it's a very universal struggle.
It really is. And you try washing it more, you try washing it less, you buy, a dozen different bottles that all promise an absolute miracle.
Can none of them work?
Exactly. You still end up feeling like you're trying to empty a leaking boat with a slotted spoon. It makes you feel like you are doing something just fundamentally wrong with your hygiene.
Right, but you're really not.
Right. And we are going to fix that today. We're pulling from a remarkably detailed guide from Ingredientsage. It's written by Lauren Fabian, and it's titled Oil from Hair, a comprehensive guide to causes, implications, and care.
It's a fantastic source.
Yeah, really comprehensive. So our mission for you on this deep dive is to decode the actual biology of your scalp, bust the most damaging washing habits out there, and build a really practical science-backed routine to manage oily hair without feeling completely overwhelmed.
Moving away from all that overwhelm and toward, well, a biological understanding is really the only way to actually solve this.
Yeah, for sure.
Because before we can even begin to talk about how to manage a greasy scalp, we have to look at why our bodies go through the immense metabolic trouble of producing this oil in the first place.
Because it takes energy to make it, right?
Exactly. We tend to view it as this, cosmetic flaw, but biologically speaking, it is a highly engineered substance.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I think most of us just look at scalp oil as the ultimate enemy. But the source material dives deep into something called sebum, and it lists a, honestly, terrifyingly long chemical makeup for it.
It does, yeah. And what's fascinating here is that sebum is basically a custom manufactured protective lubricating film. It's produced by sebaceous glands, which sit like tiny little sacs right next to your hair follicles. And the text outlines its specific chemical profile, and it is a really complex cocktail.
Right, I saw that. It's like
Triglycerides, wax esters, squalene, cholesterol esters, and various other lipids.
I have to pause you there because that sounds like a blood test result, not hair care. I mean, my head is producing fat and cholesterol and wax, like actual candle wax.
I know, it sounds super strange, but your body is incredibly smart. Think about what wax does in nature,
It coats things.
Right. It coats, it seals, it repels water. Wax esters make up a huge portion of sebum to physically waterproof your hair shaft.
Wow.
And squalene is this phenomenal natural lipid that provides intense hydration and acts as an antioxidant. And then the cholesterol esters reinforce the skin's barrier.
So it's not just random grease.
Not at all. The biological purpose of this entire complex lipid mixture is to act as a shield. It defends the hair shaft from environmental stress, it locks in moisture, and most importantly, it reduces friction.
Great friction.
Yeah, without sebum, your individual hairs would just constantly grind against each other and snap.
Oh, wow. So it is essentially nature's built-in protective hair serum.
Yeah.
And we are out here paying, what, $50 a bottle for products that try to mimic exactly what our scalp is manufacturing for free?
We truly are. It's ironic, really. And the guide points out a crucial mechanical detail about how this built-in serum works, which is that its distribution is not uniform.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the rate of sebum production and how effectively it actually travels down the hair shaft differs significantly depending on the region of your scalp, your hair density, and even the actual physical shape of your hair strand.
Which explains so much. Like, that has to be why someone can have an aggressively oily crown, but the ends of their hair are just bone dry and splitting.
Exactly.
The oil is being pumped out at the follicle, but it isn't physically sliding all the way down the hair shaft.
Right, it gets stuck at the top.
But, I mean, if it's this naturally protective, highly engineered shield, why does it suddenly become such a heavy, greasy nuisance for so many of us?
Well, the perceived greasiness happens when that delicate balance is thrown off.
Okay.
It occurs when the sheer volume of sebum production just outpaces our cleansing habits, or when that natural sebum mixes with leftover styling products, and it creates this sort of heavy sludge.
Sludge. That's a great word for it.
Yeah, it's an environmental and chemical imbalance, not a fundamental flaw in your body's design.
Understanding that sebum is actively trying to protect us completely contradicts how we usually treat it. I mean, when we see oil, our first instinct is to wage absolute war on it.
Oh, completely.
We blast it with the strongest shampoo we can find. And that brings us to a massive misconception the guide dismantles, which is the idea that washing your hair more frequently and more aggressively will somehow permanently fix the oil.
Yeah, that is perhaps the most self-sabotaging habit people fall into. The evidence clearly shows that frequent washing, especially when you're using shampoos packed with really harsh surfactants, well, it triggers a severe rebound oil effect.
Let's define surfactants for a second, because that's a word we see on the back of bottles a lot. Basically, they are detergents, right?
Yes, exactly. A surfactant molecule is fascinating because it has two ends. One end loves water, and one end loves oil.
Okay.
So when you scrub it into your scalp, the oil-loving tail aggressively grabs onto your natural sebum, and the water-loving head allows it all to be violently rinsed down the drain.
Violently rinsed. I like that.
Right. But when you use a harsh surfactant daily, you aren't just removing excess grease, you are completely ripping away that entire protective lipid shield we just talked about.
So if I'm understanding this, aggressively washing your hair is kind of like a broken thermostat.
Oh, how so?
Like, if you blast the AC by using harsh detergents to strip all the natural oil away, the scalp's internal heater just panics and kicks into overdrive to replace it.
That is a brilliant analogy, yeah. The sebaceous glands sense that the scalp's barrier has been destroyed, so they go into full emergency mode.
So they just pump out more.
Exactly. They pump out even more oil to compensate for the sudden drought, and you end up trapped in this vicious cycle where you wash because you're oily, and you're oily because you wash.
Man, that's exhausting.
It is. And furthermore, constant stripping provokes inflammation, and an inflamed scalp often traps bacteria under all that rapidly produced new oil.
That sounds absolutely miserable. And it fuels another massive stigma, the idea that oily hair equals dirty hair. People carry so much shame about looking greasy by 4 p.m.
They really do. But the guide is wonderfully clear on this point. Cleanliness and biology are not the same thing.
I love that.
Yeah, they are completely separate metrics. You can have a flawlessly clean, freshly washed scalp that simply produces sebum at a higher rate due to genetics or hormonal fluctuations or even just stress.
Wow.
Oiliness does not mean you have poor hygiene.
I love that distinction. It completely removes the shame. Cleanliness and biology are not the same. And another fear people have, which the text highlights, is that if you have an oily scalp, you should run screaming from any product that contains oil. Like, avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, the fear is totally understandable, but biologically flawed. The reality is that appropriate lightweight oils can beautifully condition the dry ends of your hair without ever traveling up to clog the scalp follicles.
Okay, so it's about where you put it.
Right. You don't have to banish all oils. You just have to be strategic about geographic application. Keep them away from the sebaceous glands.
Which means if aggressive overwashing is out, and panic stripping the scalp is just triggering that rebound effect, how do we actually control the oil? I mean, if we can't use a microscopic crowbar to pry the oil off, we need an alternative.
We do.
According to the source material, instead of scrubbing harder, we need to work smarter using a chemical toolbox.
Yeah, the shift from brute force to targeted chemistry is where real change happens. The guide highlights several key ingredients with proven efficacy for oil regulation. And first on the list is salicylic acid.
Now wait. I know salicylic acid from acne face washes. What on earth is it doing for the scalp?
Well, it acts as a gentle chemical exfoliant. Instead of physically tearing at your scalp with harsh, gritty scrubs, salicylic acid works by promoting desquamation.
Desquamation. Okay, big word. What is that actually doing at the cellular level?
Right, so desquamation is just the natural shedding of dead skin cells.
Okay.
Sometimes dead skin cells clump together with sebum to form a plug, and that traps the oil inside the pore. Now, salicylic acid is oil-soluble.
Meaning it can mix with the oil.
Exactly. It can dive straight into that oily follicle, dissolve the glue holding the dead skin cells together, and allow the oil to flow naturally instead of building up into a greasy, irritated mound.
See, here's where it gets really interesting to me. The text lists salicylic acid, and then it mentions niacinamide and panthenol, which is provitamin B5, right?
Right, yeah.
For supporting the scalp's barrier function. Are we seriously treating our scalps like our faces now? Because this sounds exactly like a trendy, multi-step facial skincare routine.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it requires a complete paradigm shift. Your scalp is skin.
Well, yeah, obviously.
But we forget that. It is literally a continuous extension of the skin on your forehead. It's just packed with a much higher density of terminal hair follicles and active sebaceous glands.
Oh, that makes sense.
So it makes perfect sense that the exact same ingredients that regulate oil, clear pores, and rebuild the moisture barrier on your face would be highly effective on your head.
I had never thought about it like that.
Yeah, niacinamide, for instance, helps reduce inflammation and tells the skin barrier to calm down, meaning it doesn't need to overproduce sebum in a panic.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
We treat our faces with such delicate, expensive chemistry
Yeah,
and then just dump harsh dish soap equivalents on our heads.
pretty much, yeah.
What else is in this toolbox?
The guide also points to zinc pyrithione and other zinc-based antifungals, as well as ketoconazole. These are absolutely critical if your oiliness is accompanied by flakiness or dandruff.
I've always wondered about that connection. Why do greasy hair and flaky dandruff so often show up to the party together? It seems like dry skin should flake, not oily skin.
That is a very common point of confusion, but the mechanism explains it perfectly. We all have a naturally occurring yeast on our scalps called Malassezia.
Malassezia. Yeah.
And this yeast loves to eat the triglycerides in our sebum, so when you produce excess oil, you are basically laying out an all-you-can-eat buffet for this yeast.
Ew, okay. Gross but vivid.
Right. And as the yeast gorges on your sebum, it leaves behind an irritating byproduct called oleic acid.
Oh, so the acid is the problem.
Exactly. Your scalp reacts to that acid by rapidly shedding skin cells to get rid of the irritant, which results in visible flakes.
So it's an irritation response.
Yes. Zinc pyrithione and ketoconazole work by essentially starving and neutralizing that yeast, stopping the inflammatory flaking process right at the source.
Okay, so we are dealing with yeast buffets and chemical exfoliants. The text definitely attaches a warning to all of this, though. We can't just go playing mad scientist and dumping a chemistry set on our heads.
Absolutely not. Because we are treating the scalp like delicate skin, we have to follow the golden rules of skincare. The guide heavily stresses the importance of patch testing any new products.
Right, just like with a face serum.
Exactly. When you're introducing potent actives like salicylic acid, you really want to ensure you don't trigger an allergic reaction or severe irritation. Because, as we learned with the rebound effect, an irritated scalp immediately becomes an oily scalp.
All right, let's bring this all down to earth for a second.
Right.
We know what sebum is, and we know we can't just aggressively wash it away without making things worse.
Right.
We have our arsenal of ingredients. Now we need to translate this biology into an actual routine. The source offers a framework for a 7-day schedule, but honestly, looking at it, with gentle cleansers, clarifying shampoos, balanced maintenance washes, exfoliants, serums, I mean, it feels like I need a spreadsheet in the shower.
Yeah, it looks intense at first glance.
Right. If I'm a listener who just wants a practical philosophy without obsessing over what day of the week it is, how do we approach this?
The guide actually anticipates that exact overwhelm. The 7-day breakdown is really just provided as an illustrative framework, but the underlying philosophy is much simpler.
Okay.
It's about cycling through 3 phases: reset, maintain, and clarify. The golden rule they provide is consistency beats frequency.
Consistency beats frequency.
Exactly. It is less about a rigid, military-style timetable and much more about learning to read your scalp's physical signals.
So how do we actually apply reset, maintain, clarify in practice?
Well, it starts with how you physically wash. On most wash days, you are just maintaining. You use a gentle, balanced cleanser, and you focus the suds strictly on the scalp.
Okay.
You let the water carry the lather down the lengths of your hair. You don't scrub the ends. Then you apply conditioner only to the mid-lengths and ends, keeping it entirely away from the root zone.
Keep the heavy hydration away from the oil factories.
Got it. But what about the clarifying phase? The text says if you use heavier styling products, you need a buildup removing wash. How is that different from aggressive stripping?
Good question. A clarifying wash uses specific formulations designed to dissolve stubborn polymers from, say, styling gels or dry shampoos that a gentle cleanser just can't budge.
Okay, that makes sense.
You do this maybe once a week or every few washes, just to give the scalp a clean slate. And there is a vital mechanical instruction here regarding water temperature.
Oh,
You should always rinse with cool to warm water, never hot.
I saw that in the guide. And honestly, why does the water temperature matter so much? I would assume hot water melts the grease better, like washing a frying pan.
Well, that is precisely the problem. It melts it too well.
Oh.
Yeah, hot water physically liquefies and strips away your baseline protective lipid barrier entirely too fast.
Wow.
Furthermore, intense heat causes vasodilation, meaning the blood vessels in your scalp expand.
This triggers acute inflammation, and your sebaceous glands respond to that heat trauma by instantly pumping out a fresh, excessive wave of oil.
So a hot shower is literally making my hair greasier.
Unfortunately, yes. Cool to warm water effectively rinses away the loosened dirt and surfactants without shocking the scalp's ecosystem.
So basically, listen to your head, not the calendar. Maintain with gentle washing. Clarify only when the styling products build up. Keep the conditioner strictly on the ends and stop boiling your scalp in the shower.
That is a perfect summary. It's a philosophy of gentle consistency.
So what does this all mean for the person who tries everything? Let's say a listener follows the golden rule. They use the salicylic acid to aid desquamation. They keep the conditioner strictly on their ends. They use lukewarm water. They are the absolute picture of consistency.
Okay.
And their scalp is still a greasy, intensely itchy, frustrating mess. What then?
That brings us to a really crucial section of the guide. Recognizing when you have hit the limits of over-the-counter chemistry and you actually need professional medical advice.
Because it's not always just a shampoo issue.
Exactly. Sometimes the issue isn't just cosmetic mismanagement, it's clinical.
What are the specific red flags that mean we need to start buying new shampoos and go see a doctor?
The primary red flags are persistent, severe oiliness combined with intense bitching, noticeable redness, or thick scaling flakes that just don't respond to zinc treatments.
Okay.
Additionally, if you experience sudden, rapid changes in your oil production completely out of nowhere, that is a very clear signal. At that point, it is time to consult a dermatologist or a trichologist, which is a specialist in scalp health.
I think framing it this way is such a massive relief for people. Because it means if the routine isn't working, it is not your fault. You aren't failing at hygiene. It's a medical issue.
It completely removes the blame, and it should. The guide points out that these severe symptoms are often indicators of underlying conditions like seborrheic dermatitis or contact dermatitis.
What are those exactly?
Well, seborrheic dermatitis is a chronic inflammatory response where your immune system is essentially overreacting to that Malassezia yeast we discussed earlier.
Oh.
And contact dermatitis is an actual allergic reaction to a specific ingredient in your hair care products. These are cellular medical events.
Right, you can't just scrub that away.
Exactly. A professional evaluation is essential because a dermatologist can prescribe targeted prescription strength anti-inflammatories or antifungals that you simply cannot get at the drugstore.
We have covered so much incredible ground today. Let's do a quick, energetic wrap-up so you can take this newfound biology straight to your shower routine. First, respect your scalp's natural barrier. That sebum is a highly engineered shield designed to protect your hair, not punish you.
Very true.
Second, dish the aggressive scrubbing, the harsh surfactants, and the boiling hot water that just triggers a rebound oil panic. Instead, use targeted skincare-grade ingredients like salicylic acid to gently clear the pores, or zinc to starve the yeast.
Beautifully said.
Third, conditioner goes on the ends, never the roots. And finally, listen to your scalp's signals instead of a rigid calendar. Consistency always beats frequency.
It really is a comprehensive approach that shifts the power back to the individual, by treating the scalp with the respect it actually deserves. But before we wrap up, there is one detail from the sources section on current trends that we absolutely have to discuss.
Oh, I love looking at where the science is going. What is the trend?
It points toward where the entire science of scalp care is heading, and it builds on everything we've talked about. The guide notes that the scientific community and the market are rapidly shifting toward exploring the scalp microbiome.
The microbiome.
Yeah. We are seeing the beginning of a prebiotic and probiotic-inspired approach to scalp care.
Wait, like probiotics for your gut health, but applied directly to your head.
Exactly that concept.
Right.
We mentioned earlier that yeast naturally feeds on your sebum, but your scalp is actually home to billions of bacteria, fungi, and microorganisms that make up a thriving, invisible ecosystem. Historically, our approach has been to just nuke this ecosystem with harsh cleansers. The new science is asking a radically different question. What if we support the good bacteria so they naturally outcompete the bad yeast?
This raises an important question then. Are we eventually going to be applying actual bacteria to our heads to eat the oil for us?
Honestly, that is the frontier. Prebiotics would act as food to nourish the beneficial microorganisms already living there, helping them maintain the scalp's acidic pH.
Right.
And probiotics would introduce new, helpful bacterial strains. It leaves us with a fascinating future to consider. What if, in a few years, the standard routine for fighting oily hair isn't about washing the oil away at all?
Oh, wow.
What if we are actively cultivating a specific microscopic workforce on our heads to naturally digest and regulate the oil for us?
That is wild. The idea that we could essentially outsource our hair care to a thriving microscopic garden living on our scalps. It completely flips the concept of dirty on its head.
It really does.
Cleanliness might actually mean cultivating the right kind of biological activity rather than wiping it all out. We started this deep dive talking about that feeling of trying to empty a leaking boat with a slotted spoon. Turns out we don't need a bigger spoon. We just need to understand the water, patch the leak with the right chemical ingredients, and maybe, eventually, let the ocean's ecosystem take care of itself. Keep digging into the things that make you curious, respect your biology, and we will see you next time.